Hello everyone, I'm Jafet Campos, and this video is about young adult literature, contemporary issues, and it is focused on racial and cultural identity. So let's start. This is a set of questions that I will try to answer one by one. And the first one says, what is the topic assigned about? Well, let me tell you that it's about race and cultural identity. And as we know, throughout history, humans always have this dimension of the self, these feelings, and this necessity of belonging to something, right? Something to feel identified with, something that is inside us, like it is like a need that we need to feel. And well, either you like it or not, we are social beings, so that is basically. Although aspects of cultural and racial identity sometimes can give strength and support, they can also contribute to stress, pain, anxiety, prejudice, and lots of those negative feelings. In some cases, they can lead to mental health, even mental health conditions. Some challenging aspects surrounding racial and cultural identity could range from racial bias and microaggressions to intergenerational traumas. For example, one may experience discrimination due to their physical characteristics or their cultural identity, or probably they may experience personal conflicts between their values and the expectations of their community or culture. That is language, behavior, and even gender roles. And this topic somehow has to do with otherness, with, of course, identity of the culture of young Latinos, Asian African, Native American people that usually belong to minority groups. But yeah. Then the second question said, how is this topic related to adolescents and young adults? Well, in many ways, definitely. And generally, these race and cultural identity issues occurs to people from different ages. However, I think that being a young adult is one stage in life in which we experience several existential and mental problems. Yeah, actually. And not just with society, right, but with ourselves. And as we already know, young adult literature explores and exposes and makes readers think about many of these concerns. So of course, race and cultural topics are very related to adolescents. Now moving to the third one, it says, what is the chapter of the book chosen about? Well, actually, the chapter is the chapter 7, and sorry, it is called Young Adult Literature and Adolescent Identity Across Culture and Classroom. Actually, that's the name of the book, sorry. But the chapter is Mestizaje, sorry, Forging Identity Through Hybridity by René Saldaña Jr. Okay, so this chapter, in this chapter, we can find topics related to being discriminated or not taking into account individuals just because the differences regarding skin color, accents, or because they belong to certain countries. or certain culture. And it has been this actually has been a thing since many years ago, and actually it is a concern. It is a matter that we should be aware, that we should be concerned about. And this part of the book, I think, achieve that into readers. It's like, if you read this chapter, probably you will notice and you will think about many of these racial issues that we can find not only in foreign countries, but here in Costa Rica as well. This chapter in this chapter it is mentioned like 3 or 4 examples in different environments with different characters, in which readers can definitely realize, as I told you before, about how significant for society these topics are. In general, these topics should be significant and relevant, but it's a matter of the readers, of each person. The author also refers to hybridization of culture, which I think it is a part of our collective reality nowadays. Chapter 7, as you can see, it is called mestizaje. But in this chapter, mestizaje is defined as hybrid language composed of Spanish and English that is particular to Mexican American people. And according to the author, mestizaje shouldn't be confused with bilingualism, which is actually the ability, the skills to speak two languages. Mestizaje instead is a carefully constructed third language that borrows from each of the parent tongues such components as sentence structure, parts of speech, and words, so linguistic and grammatical features. In this case, from Spanish and from English. So with these languages, we can have this mestizaje. It's what happened here in Costa Rica years ago, Limon province. To move on with the presentation, this mestizaje occurs in alternative spaces, and in the reading, the reference to the third country between the United States and Mexico, so the borders, let's say, of the countries. The author refers to that alternative spaces. So in those spaces, we can find this kind of mestizaje. As I told you before, we don't have to go far to realize that this circumstance of mestizaje also took place here in Costa Rica and Limon many years ago, around 60 or 70 decades, when Black people were discriminated against and rejected, etc., because their cultural identity and roots. So mestizaje is not a language of exclusivity, though it is quite the contrary. It is a tongue necessitated out of the desire to be counted, where people had previously gone uncounted or discriminated. And that occurs all over the world, right? Mostly in places between borders of countries. So basically, this is like not a summary, but I'm trying to wrap up all the aspects that we can find in this chapter. Then regarding the young adult short story related to this topic of racial and identity issues, cultural issues. The title of the story was well, is Monsters by Adriana Maraclian, something like that. And a message to my viewers or my partners, my classmates, the people who probably watch this video, Professor. Why should why should you read the story? Well, basically, if you like to read, go ahead, right? Because it's a nice story. But imagine that you can see things or individuals that nobody else can see. How would you feel? Or would you ignore them? Would you react to them? Um, I don't know. These questions just came to my mind when I was reading. Well, how would I react if I see creatures that nobody else can see? Well, but the plot, well, the plot, it is about a journey of a Venezuelan girl called Milagros, who moves to Brooklyn, United States, with her aunt. Sorry, and Milagros doesn't speak English, so in some points of the story, she's discriminated because of that. It is suspenseful at times. It has funny moments. It has an interesting plot, and it can be seen as a good critic and a good narration with little uncertainty of situations that many immigrants may have faced in terms of discrimination, at least one in their lives. Well, for me. So yeah, it is a catchy story. It is a mixture of interesting, funny, shocking moments related to cultural identity. So yeah, you should read it if you like this kind of topics. And now let's move to the conclusions. And we have two questions. Why is it relevant to read about this topic of young adult literature in today's society? Well, for me, it is relevant because it points out that ethnic identity is developed in adolescence, and it is passed from one generation to the next one to the next one throughout through customs, traditions, language, religious practices, cultural values, everything that we know so far as individuals, no matter the place you were born. And also because our ethnic and racial identities are also influenced by the popular media, mass media, definitely literature and young adult literature, of course, and significant events in history. So that's why it's relevant for me, this topic. Now let's move to the second one. It says, what impact may novels or short stories of this topic have on adolescents and young adults? Well, it depends, but the good news here is that definitely it is going to impact the perspective, not only young adults peoples, but all readers in general, because these kind of novels cover topics or tend to cover topics like acceptance, openness, tolerance, as we saw in the chapter 7, discrimination, hate, rejection to otherness. So yeah, this kind of topics are interesting, and these topics could open the youth mind, as young people see differences as good aspects of cultures instead of the opposite, like rejecting the otherness, right? Also, additionally, ethnic identity may play a larger role among young adult literature and also among minority groups of youth, because they experience the contrasting and dominant culture of the majority ethnic groups. Youth or young people who belong to the majority ethnic culture, probably they may not even recognize or acknowledge their ethnicity, or their ethnic identity, let's say. And here is when young adult literature works, like readings, books, and so on. I don't know, poetry, probably stories, short stories, fiction stories of life. Right? So if young people start at that age, I don't know, probably at 12 years old, by getting closer with these important topics, probably when they reach adulthood, they would be more open-minded instead of, like reject everything that is different, or reject different cultures or different races, let's say ethnicity groups. So yeah, the probably this is the impact that these short stories may have on young adult. Now let's move to the final part, that is about a book, or an example of a book, sorry, example of a book of young adult literature that provide an insight to this topic. And I found interesting a book called the hate you give by Angie Thomas, and it was published in 2017. The book covers subjects such as racism, social inequity, cultural diversity, and themes that are in our society, and that are presented in our society, and that has been uh, a thing actually since many years ago inside our society. So the plot is about two teenager friends and Black people that they come together in a party. They live in a poor Black neighborhood. One of them got like a scholarship to a private school, and suddenly, when it seems that their friendship may become stronger or better, a white cop pulls them over and fatally shoots one of them. So it's about racism and these kind of issues that we can uh, see nowadays in our society. Actually, in this book, the author speaks through the voice of a brilliant, righteous, and pop culture obsessed young man who is constantly code switching. That actually, this code switching is also a term for the mestizaje, or some people confuse that with Spanglish or with bilingualism, but all of these aspects are related to cultural identity, right? So the author Thomas suggests that growing up means that we need to find a community, and that we have to learn to care for other people as they probably could care for us. So yeah, this was the topic. This is the works cited. um Thank you so much for your attention.